Hello, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and I'm here in the home studio. I'm going to do another demonstration. I've done one of these before. I'm going to do a demonstration of Canon's internal stacking focus bracketing feature. This is the R6 Mark II that I'm using to demonstrate it. I'm going to use the 24-105 lens. This is not even a macro lens. It's just the kit lens that comes with this camera if you buy the nicer of the two kits. My subject today is Chewbacca right here and Luke Skywalker slightly behind him. What focus bracketing does is it has the camera take a series of photos, and you can determine how many you want it to take and alter the focus in between each photo so that you can get everything in your scene in focus. For example, right now I'm focused on Chewbacca in the foreground, but you can see in the background Luke Skywalker is out of focus. And what focus bracketing allows me to do is get both of them in focus in the same shot. Now that I have Chewbacca and Luke Skywalker filling the frame, you can see how out of focus Luke Skywalker is in the background. Okay, so let's go into the menus. And if you are in the red camera menu on page 6, the third item down is focus bracketing. So let's go into that submenu. First thing you got to do is enable focus bracketing to get this to work, and you can select a number of shots from 2 to I think 999. I found that about 30 shots works for this situation. Next up is the focus increment. This is how far the camera will adjust focus in between the shots that it makes. The default, as you can see here, is 4, but I like to use 1, so it moves the smallest amount in between each picture, and that gives it the most likely chance to not miss anything when it does its focus bracket. Now there's 3 options that you can turn on and off, and I turn them all on. Exposure smoothing is if the exposure changes a little bit between shots, it'll try to smooth things out. And in this situation, it shouldn't be changing because I'm kind of in a controlled studio environment, but I'm going to turn it on just in case. Next is depth composite, and when you turn on depth composite, as I have it now enabled, it will take the shots that it makes and create a depth composite. It'll do a focus stack in camera. I'm shooting in RAW, and it will keep all of my RAW shots that I made so I can use third-party software to make my focus stack, but the focus stack that it makes in camera will come out as a JPEG. And then crop depth composite. Sometimes when you're adjusting focus, things will get a little weird at the edges of the frame, and crop depth composite crops those parts out. So I've got it set up for 30 shots, which I've done a little trial and error, and that's what you'll need to do in your situation. And 30 shots works pretty good for this situation. And focus increment 1. Now, when the camera does the focus bracket, it starts at your focus point and slowly moves further and further away until you arrive at infinity, or it runs out of shots for the 30 shots that I have it programmed for. Like if I had it programmed for just 2 shots, it might not even get all the way back to Luke Skywalker. So you want to focus on the nearest thing in your scene. And I think the closest thing to the camera is Chewbacca's nose. So that's what I have set as my focus point. And I've got a 2-second timer on so I can press my shutter release and wait a couple seconds, and then it will make the shots. So here we go. I'm pressing it right now, and we're counting down, and now it's making the shots, and now it's creating the depth composite, which takes not very long. Pretty nice processor in this camera. So now look, you can see when we're back at the scene, you can see the focus has moved back to Luke Skywalker. Now Luke Skywalker's in focus, but Chewbacca is out of focus. But let's take a look. I'm going to hit the play button here on the camera. There is our depth composite. Let me see if I can full screen it. And you can see Chewbacca's in focus in the foreground, and Luke Skywalker is completely in focus in the background. I've got a couple of blown highlights on his helmet, but I think that's not too big of a problem. But doesn't that look nice? The depth composite, both of these figures in focus at the same time. So, you can do this on products. If you have a product that you need to make a photograph of and you need the entire thing in focus, this is how you could do it. For example, What if I wanted to make a photo of my little Sony a6700 and I wanted the entire camera to be in focus? So I'm going to move my focus point to the closest thing in the scene, which is the end of the lens hood there, and 2-second timer. Let's make our 30 shots. Let's wait for the depth composite to get made. And now you can see the foreground, which I originally focused on, is out of focus, but way back here is in focus. Now let's look at our depth composite. And there you have it. The entire camera, front to back, is in focus and looks pretty nice. So this is how you could use the focus bracketing feature for product photography. I just noticed when I was looking at this depth composite up close, it's actually not all in focus. Let's take a look. It's definitely in focus up here, but what about back here at the very back? It looks like my shots stopped before I got all the way to the back of the camera. So let's see how to fix that. Let's go back into our menu, our focus bracketing. Remember, it stops when it gets to infinity. It starts at your focus point and it stops making shots either when it gets to infinity or when it runs out of shots. So it looks like for this photograph of the little Sony camera, 30 shots is not enough. So I'm going to bump it up to 45. And we'll see what happens with that. Had to get our focus point right. All right. There we go, making our 45 shots now. And making our depth composite now. This should take a little longer because it's way more pictures to work through. Now we'll hit the play button and let's take a closer look. It definitely from here looks like everything's in focus, but let's get a little closer and see, because the part that was struggling to be in focus was right back here. And now that has fixed it. So if the back of your picture is not sharp, just add a few more shots. You don't want to run the camera all the way to infinity because sometimes it makes it more difficult for the camera to stitch things together. But in this situation, adding 15 shots definitely fixed our problem. And you can see we are sharp front to back for sure now. The camera will only do focus bracketing in electronic shutter mode. And I think if you have it set up for mechanical or electronic first curtain and you switch on focus bracketing, it automatically switches the camera to electronic shutter. But if not, if it doesn't work, then just switch your camera to electronic shutter and it'll work. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, reach down and give me a thumbs up. That always helps me out. And if you want to see some more stuff like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.